today's lessons. So we're talking about Azure storage and what Azure has to offer. We talk about storage. Now, I need to understand to what level we understand things to be. Now, I want to know how many of us are familiar with the cloud, or are we? I just need to know where I could start from to start explaining things. Okay, will I just go to the basis of how many of us have set up an Azure account before? Can I get to a response from anyone? Has anybody set up an Azure account before? Okay, if there is no response, should we go and start setting up an account so we could just get familiar with what we have? Let me start that from the beginning. So I will have to cancel my account. So, incognito. Okay, so Microsoft gives you a free tier. Let's just open it. Let me just share my screen so we could see these things clearly for ourselves. I'm kind of like I'm kind of slow in trying to navigate my way through the UI of Zoom. I'm actually not used to Zoom. I'm used to using Microsoft software for delivering the service. What they call it again? Name just keeps skipping my head.
Teams.
Teams, yeah. Teams, yeah. Teams. And usually Google Meet. I'm usually familiar with those two. Let's share the screen. Let's share the screen entirely. Let's share the screen entirely. So how can I move this down? How can I move this down? Let's look at that. So we're starting up Microsoft. I have to set up this obviously I'm not a robot. Okay, so we're creating a free account. Microsoft actually gives you a free account to start with, to know how to navigate your way through the whole services and platforms. So this is a free account. You actually get. Let's be clear on this. I don't want to assume or presume anything. I just want to be distinct and be precise. So I think usually you usually get 100 Azure credits. Like this credit is actually a means of e-commerce. So what's you using? Okay, now what Azure credits is I'm not trying to define it. I'm trying to like make you guys understand the concept of what Azure credits. Like take for instance, we have different currencies. Now Azure currency is the currency in Azure. Now you could get Azure currencies. You could take Azure currencies as something using paying for your services. You don't get to pay for these services directly. You don't communicate with dollar direct. You communicate with Azure credits, Azure services with Azure credits. So that's what Azure credits is all about. So now, what are the services that Microsoft actually produce? They actually produce different kind of services, but depending on what you actually wanting to perform on cloud. Take for instance, I'm really trying to get. Are most of us here developers? And most of us here developers, I need to know the basis of how to go down, like if I'm actually carrying everybody around, because as much as I'm doing this, I want to break things down to the barest minimum so that I will not just start on an abstract level. I start going up. I want to be sure of the level to which we understand things. So I would go basic down to the barest minimum, assuming that everybody is new or this is their first approach towards Azure. So basically, what Microsoft does is that it gives you these are services. Let me just use my account as I'm not ready for the setup of the whole. Let me just use my Microsoft accounts, Azure account to set things up. So this is their authorization. So this is the account. This is our Microsoft account. I have a couple of VMs. You can see them here, a couple of VM and other resources here. But basically, this is Microsoft service. Now we have different services today, but today we're talking about. I believe last classes we talked about there was someone that handled something on Azure Active Directory and Azure Domain. So this is actually a session talking about storage, what a storage account is, how to create storage accounts. So I'll be putting up my slides. So we'll make this quick, and I would like this to be an interactive session whereby I get to have a feedback of what I'm actually doing, because feedbacks in the history of software is actually necessary. So you know that you're actually delivering your best. So this is my slide. Let's make this huge. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
okay.
yes, we can.
So we'll be talking about storage accounts, blob storage, storage security, Azure Files, Azure File synchronization, managing storage, and probably, if time permits, we'll do a little bit of lab. So what is a storage account? A storage account is like, okay, let me put up this diagram up for you so you can understand what I'm talking about when I talk about storage accounts. It's like a layer of containers having different services. Now, what can we find in an Azure account? We have different services that Microsoft produces. When we talk about Azure storage account, sorry. When we talk about Azure storage account, we have different services to which Microsoft produces. We have on our normal operating system, we have our file storage on our memory card, on different things. We could store files and store them in different ways. If you're talking of dealing with websites, we talk about structured query languages and how these are actually structured. We talk about different kind of NoSQL. I mean, all of us are actually familiar with NoSQL. Okay, probably, I'm assuming. NoSQL is actually an unstructured query, a structured query language. Yeah, so let me just put up a diagram to actually explain what a storage account is. Can I find you? Okay, now let me put this up for you guys to see. And so can everyone see my screen? This is actually a storage account, this box, to which we have different services inside. Now, the kind of services we have, I'm sharing my full screen, so let's just make this smooth while I toggle through, because I'm still trying to understand the whole Zoom UI and the rest. So this is a storage account where we place in different kind of services. We have the table. Let me put up my slides. We have the table, we have the the blob storage, we have the blob storage, we have the tables, we have the file share, we have, okay, now this is it. We have the containers. Okay, the containers are what we actually use to package these services. Now, these containers are what we take, for instance, you have in an Azure, in a container, we have different services. We have, can you see my mouse, please? Can anyone see my mouse?
Not at the moment, so, but I didn't.
No, not now.
All right. So in an Azure account, we have different files, we have different tables, we have different queues. Now, these are actually different services that Microsoft brings together. Now, if you're hosting a service and you're hosting a website, you're not expecting to use a file service like the way we actually store our data on our operating system. We don't expect to structure it in that way when you're talking about delivering services, when you're talking about websites. So there are different ways, there are different approaches, there are different technologies. As things evolve, we have to just scale up and find the latest technology on how to deliver things smoothly and better. So now, when we talk about these things, we're talking about how to deliver. Now, if we talk about blob storage, what's the blob storage? A blob storage is like, picture it like a bucket to which we drop different things inside. So depending on what we store inside that blob storage, the blob storage actually gives us different services. We have, we could keep images inside, we could keep logs, we could keep, it's just a way of storing things, different types of data into that bucket. Now, we don't just throw things into the bucket. We have to organize them. There must be a level of organization. So we actually have to put these things in a structured way. So we put them in containers. Now, when you have your storage account as the first layer, I believe I'm trying to get abstract here. So we have the storage account as the first layer. Then inside that storage account, we have containers, different sets of containers, depending on what you want. Now, if you're talking of containers, we're actually talking about Azure Blob Storage. So now, if we're talking of different accounts, we're now having to put these objects or this data. Let's call them objects. Let's not call them data because we're talking of buckets here. We're using different acronyms, analogies to actually depict what's going on in the cloud. So if we have a bucket as our container and we have types of data, we could put oranges into that bucket. We could put pencils into that bucket. But you're not expecting to put orange and pencil all jumbled up inside that bucket. We actually put them in a container to actually structure them in an organized way. Now, there are different kind of blob storage. There are different kind of pencils and oranges we have. Now, if you're talking of wanting to store an orange inside a bucket, there's a way you store the orange. There's a way you place the orange in an organized way into the bucket. If you're talking of storing pencils into a bucket, there's a way you have to actually probably place them on the floor, just lie them down along in an organized way. So actually placing them in a structured way and a structured manner. Let me move up my slide as I talk so I don't get to talk about these things in depth. Oh man, Zoom is actually messing up at the moment right now. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes, we can.
My Zoom actually froze. I'm actually having issues with Zoom. I just installed it at the moment, and right now it's misbehaving. So I had to share my screen, and it's misbehaving at the moment. Sorry, just a minute. Let me try and sort things out. So, let me try and log out and call you back. Can anyone hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so sorry for the disruption. Zoom was misbehaving at that moment, and I just installed it. So I hope. Well, right now we're good. We're good. Okay, so this is actually what I've. So now what's this? Like I said initially, containers are like where you structure your blob storage. Now Azure Files is like the normal file system we have in our operating system. Now, Azure Tables, a NoSQL store for schemas, storage for structured data. So it's is a place where you actually store your database for probably creation of web pages or web applications, or how you handle when you're talking of database. This is like a place where you store them. So when we talk about Azure Queues, now Azure Queues are, take for instance, you create an application that sends a message to the back end to actually signify, okay, now you purchase something online, you should have to send a message to that, or you have to send a message to your backend, another service altogether, to show that, oh, this thing you actually clicked, this was your action. So it's like you clicked one, it has to tell the backend that this is what you clicked was one. You click two, so it's like a way of queuing these things and putting them in an organized way, in a queue, where everybody goes one after the other. But right now, we're going to focus on blob storage and Azure Files specifically, Sha, because that's what's majorly emphasized when you're talking about 104. Then tables and queues are kind of emphasized when you're talking about 204. Azure 204. That's what I mean. So blob storage, we have different types of accounts. We have the V1 account, we have the V2 account, the general purpose account, V1, and we have general purpose account, V2. Now, we'll talk about the difference between V1 and V2 later on as we talk about blob storage. Now, when we talk about storing files in your Azure blob storage, we store them in different we store them in three files. We actually store them locally. Now we have local redundant storage, we have zone redundant storage, we have geo redundant storage. Local redundant storage is like a duplicate into three different files, but spread across three different drives. Now, when we talk about zone, it's actually replicated across the zone. So we're not, it's like it's being more resilient. It's being more there's this word you use in the cloud. There's this particular word we use in the cloud. Okay, let's just skip that. I guess I'm forgetting so many things at the moment right now. But they call it all right, let's skip that. Now, geo-redundant storage is actually spread across different regions. So we actually find like it's a way of preserving your data to be kept across different geographical locations. One, you could do that in a case whereby you want to actually access these things. Now, take for instance, you have a service that we have at the US, like we deploy or we create a resource at a region in the US East, take for instance, and now we are in Nigeria. And how do we access these things for there to be zero latency or minimum latency? Now we have to spread this across to different areas whereby it's closer to you and you can actually reach at that moment. So it's like a way of breaking things down so you can easily access these things easily. Two, it is resilient. Will I use the word resilient? It is it's disaster recovery. Yes, I'll say it's disaster recovery idea. Like just trying to push off all the whole languages together. Really, English is really sucks. I feel like just expressing myself out, but I'm trying to comport myself to which I can express these things. Geo-redundant storage is like spreading these things across different geographical locations, whereby we can easily access these things and reach out to all these different data and services. Now, local redundant storage is actually spread across different hard disks. This is actually spread across different hard disks. Now, zone redundant storage is actually spread across different zones. Geo-redundant storage is actually spread across different regions. Now, I believe all of us here knows the difference between zones and regions. I really want this class to be interactive because it really gives me the base to which I will start from, because I will not want to start There are other things we could talk about and lay more emphasis. So do we know what zones and actually regions and zones are?
If I good afternoon. If I could good afternoon. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think zone, like you said, probably somewhere like the central US. Then when we talk about region, is like different regions in that central geographical region is different places in US. You know, maybe like San Francisco and California and the likes of it. I don't know if that explains it explicitly.
Okay. Thereabouts. But I want to say different regions, different zones make different zones, like different zones make a region. Not different zones, like zones are actually grouped into regions. Are we clear on that? And now when we talk about data centers, when we talk about data centers, when we're talking about local redundant storage, we're actually distributing it across different hard disks. How many of us have seen it, what a data center is? So, you know, we usually have different hard disks. We usually have different hard disks and different VMs and different servers and the rest. So actually, your data is being spread across those, within that data center. Local redundant storage spread across that data center. But zones is spread across the zone. Now, geo-redundant means it's spread across the region. Are we clear on that?
Okay, so that means it was the other way around.
Yes, it's the other way around. Yeah. So you could read this up. This is read access geo-redundant storage. Yeah, the data is duplicated 3 times within the primary region and replicated with read access. Now, we'll talk about that. How many of us have actually not allowed anybody to operate on our PC because they might mistakenly delete something? Probably the person doesn't know how to handle files and documents on your PC, and you just press a button and delete it. So there are different. That's when we talk about different access. You have we'll talk about that later. Different access. Now, accessing storage. Accessing storage, see, I'm leaving this slide. Let's just go to Azure portal and let's talk about all these things.
Is it possible to have the soft copy of this material?
No problem. I'll post it on the group.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll post on. So let's just go straight. Let's dive in. Let's open everything.
I think it will be more explicit when you do it live and we see from the Azure portal itself.
I hate frameworks. I hate following rules. So now this is when you open your Azure.
Okay. I wanted to be clarified on something. Before you open or maybe like trying to run a service.
Okay.
First of all, running a service is running a virtual machine, right?
No. Okay, let me get clear. No. Let me just explicitly stop you there, because Microsoft gives you different services. Azure gives you different services. You could run a VM. You could run container services. You could run a Kubernetes service. You could run a storage service, storage as a service, if there's anything like that. But you're actually storing things. You're actually giving you different services. You could host these things outside Azure. You're just packaging different things you could actually handle when you are dealing with on-prem. Now, when I'm talking on-prem, I'm talking about live physical servers, physical hardware, physical storage. In your laptop, you have an SSD. Okay, you have a HDD. Take for instance, that HDD is where you store your files. Now, what computes your file is just being stored. But when we talk about RAM, when we talk about how many cores, when we talk about the speed, when we talk about different things, we're talking about compute resources. Compute resources we're not talking about a different system. Now, if you've seen you could see a system of 8 gig RAM, 10th generation, but 128 SSD. And now that person, you can see another person with 255 SSD with the 17 gig RAM. Just take, for instance, with different configurations, with different specific purposes. Now, gaming systems will have more GPU. How many of us know what GPU is? GPU is like graphic processing units. So if you're talking about services, if we're talking about container services, virtualization services, we're talking about different purposes. Now, if you build an application, your application might be stereotyped towards, okay, let's say we're building an Instagram application now. Your Instagram application is going to be fashioned in a way whereby you must be able to handle images and videos very, very well. Now, if you're talking about, let's take, for instance, I'll give for an instance whereby we don't need large storage. A bank application. Now, a bank application would not provide so much, would not pay so much concentrations on storage, because we actually have just logs and files, just like things of 1 KB, 2 KB. But when we're talking about these things when we're talking about images, we're talking about things that are heavy, things that are off. So we have to provision things better, be able to actually process images better. We're actually able to process files better when we talk about delivering services. So if we're talking about virtualization, let me not veer off. We're talking about Azure, Microsoft Azure services. We have different kind of services. We have storage account. If you check out, storage is a service. Can you see my screen? Am I sharing the entire screen?
Yeah,
We are
you're
saying
still on the
demonstration, securing the storage endpoint.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm still trying to navigate my way through this. I need to share my entire screen.
But before you go further, I want to get a clarification between VM, instance. You just talked about services now. Well, what's the difference between VM and instance?
Now, a VM is a virtual machine. Is a laptop on cloud. Let me be blunt like that. A virtual machine is a laptop on cloud. Now, an instance is when we're talking about a container service. An instance could be seen as a virtual machine, but why we're using that word instance is because that thing you're running could actually be a virtual machine. And inside that virtual machine, you might have a container. And inside that container, you might have another container inside. So if you're talking about an instance, we're talking about a virtual machine as a first layer, talking about a container, a Docker image as another layer. We're talking about another instance inside that layer. So we're talking about another Docker inside that layer. So let me know if that word instance. So in order for you to generalize this whole thing, so you cannot specify, oh, this is VM, this is Docker. No, not to generalize this thing. You can say, okay, we're talking about the VM instance. We're talking about this VM as a whole. We're holding something. It's just a general way of abstracting a general way of saying an instance. Am I clear? Am I actually painting out a clear picture here?
Yeah. What you're talking
about? Tell me when I'm wrong. That's why I like interactive classes. So I don't want to impose anything on anybody. I don't want to bamboozle you. If anything you're not clear on, you let me know. Let me know. Let me just.
In the course of learning this Azure, personally, I have been hearing about, VM. I hear about instance. I hear about services. These terminologies just keeps getting jumbled in my head. So I just want to get a clear understanding on each and every one of them. Like you said, instance like a virtual machine that has containers also in them, like Dockers. And
Yeah.
also Docker has maybe like Ubuntu or any other what's it called? How can I put it?
Yeah.
App
Operating
service.
system.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
runs on it. Yeah, so that clarifies it.
Yeah. So it's basically what you are running, what is running on. That's the simple thing, because anything you run on Docker, you can run it on your VM directly, naked. You don't need another level of virtualization. You don't need to put anything on top. Anything you run on Docker, you feel run out for your VM. Like it's easy. So now, but why are we using Docker? Is because Docker is lighter. Docker it gives you another layer of since we're having a different layer of virtualization, it gives you another layer of security too. So if you're a hacker, you first hack that instance. You first hack the VM. After hacking the VM, you don't have to hack the Docker. You don't have to pass through the Docker firewall or the Docker security. So it's just a way of improving your technology. And now, if you check out why are we using Docker, I will not want to vary off. Let's come back to the thing. But is there any other question you guys want to ask me on? Because I can keep talking and talking and talking and talking, but I still want to maintain order. We're talking about storage. We're not talking about virtual machines. So any other question, but I would like to clear every other question so we don't get to mix things up. Any other question?
No, I don't think I have any for now.
Okay, but are we clear on the instance, the word instance, and what is being used and where it's being used?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so an instance is just where you run your thing on. When you run your thing, application, your bash script, anything, your terminal. This is my terminal here. This is my terminal here. It's not opening at the moment. Oh,
So what do
okay.
you use for a terminal?
Okay, what's a terminal? Is that
What
what
do
you
you
said?
use for a terminal?
What do I use to do in my terminal? I didn't
What
get
do
your
you
picture. I didn't
use?
get
What
your.
do you use for your terminal? Is it just CMD?
CMD is command line. Now, terminal is for Linux. For Linux for Linux is called terminal. For Windows is called command line. So, but all of them have the black screen, and all of them is where you put. A terminal is just an operating system without the UI. When I'm talking of UI, we're not seeing images. See, anything you can actually do on this, you can see my mouse, right?
Yes.
Okay, so anything you can actually do on this place, all your buttons you're clicking, you can actually do them on the terminal. This is just for those who are not actually familiar with the terminal, those who are not actually familiar with command line, those who are not actually familiar with black and I need to bring out my terminal. Let me just use the cloud terminal. See, I click this button here and it actually brings out the cloud shell. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is my cloud shell. This is my cloud shell right now at the moment. So any of these things, if I'm this kind of guy that wants to do terminal things, because terminal is always very quick, it's very fast. You explicitly define what you want and you get sharp. Or if you're doing a UI, you have to navigate. Okay, if I want to go to my CentOS, I have to go click this button. I have to wait for it to load. This whole UI that is loading, this whole thing slows down the process. So I don't want to suffer all these things. I just go to my terminal and explicitly define all these things and list them out sharp and get your work done. And now what we use the command line is actually to pass in rules. It's like speaking to the computer directly without having to click buttons, move mouses, do every other thing that is called the UI. So that's what a terminal is actually used for. It's like a system without an operating system. You can do a lot of things on a terminal. You can do everything you can do on your UI, you can do it on a terminal. How a UI is built is that It's their command line codes, their terminal codes that are actually being packaged in a way whereby you can just click a button and it does that same thing that you have to write. Am I clear on it?
Yes.
Okay, like now if I write this gibberish now, and what it does is to bring out something. Do you understand? So, okay, let's. Am I allowed to veer off? Who is the moderator here? Please let me know. Am I allowed to veer off? Because I could spend my whole day just explicitly defining these things, but we are still going to come back to cloud storage accounts and storage services. So this is this. Okay, let's. Okay, so this is my certification VM. Can we see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, this is what I call my certification. This is where I just keep things. So now if I do ls, I'm trying to list out all directories. Now, what you see here, chill, I'm going to open another thing for you. Just cool down. I'm going to open something else for you. Just to make sure I make sure that everybody gets to understand or come up to part to where to understand the concept. I will not just want to explain another concept without making sure that you don't understand the basics. So this is my Ubuntu VM machine hosted on Azure. Are we good? Now, whatever I see here, this is actually, don't worry, I'll describe how I did this thing maybe some other time or something. But this is the Ubuntu, this is my operating system. Now, when I do home, it's meant to open a file. It's meant to open a file explorer. And we're going to see this desktop, DevSecOps, downloads, documents, music, pictures, public. This should be open, please. So are we good? Can we see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So now this is DevSecOps, documents, download, music, pictures, public. Now, if you go to my terminal, it's the same thing we see here too. Desktop, documents, music, public, templates. It's a way. It's like you don't need the UI. I don't need the UI. I don't need to do click. This is me clicking DevSecOps and trying to open all the files that are inside DevSecOps, right? But I could go to my terminal and actually do this too. CD. DevSecOps, yeah. So I've seeded into DevSecOps and I'm listing out what is inside DevSecOps. So now what are we having here is Jenkins files, README, Azure Ansible.sh config. Now, if you check out these places, these are the same thing we have. We have the README, sorry, DevSecOps, yeah. We have the README, we have the Azure Ansible.sh, we have the config.xml. The same thing I'm seeing here is the same thing I'm seeing here, but I don't just need the pictures because all these pictures are codes and these codes will slow me down. So, but what this code does is that instead of me going here to start writing all these things, because now what we call CD is to actually enter a directory. CD is like clicking something. Now, ls is like listing out things. Ls is something you see. Now, if I click a button, ls is I seed into it and I list out. Do you understand? I seed into something and I list out. So I enter into something and I see it. Now, Are we getting it clear? Please, I like this class to be interactive, because if I just
Yeah.
come here,
Yeah, I think this practical illustration has just kind of cleared it all. The terminal and the terminal questions and all. The command
I didn't get
line
you clear.
I said I think this practical illustration has just cleared everything you're saying concerning the command line and all.
Okay. So now this is what the command line does. This is how we do things on the command line. All these things are codes, and these codes will slow you down. To see my Python logo show this thing, to show this blue and show this yellow, they are codes, and these codes are not necessary. They are just to tell you, oh, this is a Python file. But already, as a tech guy that you are, you know that anything.py is a Python file. Anything.yml is a YAML file. You don't need to have all these things. These things are unnecessary for me. So that is why tech guys don't use the normal UI. All these things are UI. Now, what Azure did is that they created a UI where you can navigate through. But if these things are slowing you down, there was a time whereby the UI was very slow. What I just did was just use my Azure CLI tool, or enter the cloud, then use my Cloud Shell. Azure CLI tool is the same thing too. Like now, if subsequently I will be able to show you something like that. But let's just get back to the main course of what we have today. So instances, virtualization, virtual machines, all these things. Because the wonderful exam, you can't cram. Even if you read a dump, if you don't know it, you don't know it. If you read it, you cram it, you enter the exam hall, they will just, you enter the exam, you'll just tweak one or two things and throw you off guard. Just change one or two languages and they'll throw you off guard. So you need to understand these things basically. You need to know your onion. Now, when we have this, let's get back to Azure Storage. Azure Storage is what we use in storing different kind of things. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Different kind of things. When you say different kind of things, can you be more explicit?
Yes. Now, the different kind of things, when we say different kind of things, we're talking about tables, we're talking about queues. Queues is like an application talking to an application. I make a bank transfer of 2,500. They debit me 2,500, right? They credit him 2,500. If I make a transfer of 5K, the 5K would have to wait for the 2.5 to go first before the 5K has to go. So it's like a queue service. This thing must handle this tax first. This will handle this tax first before it handles the next tax. So that's just how queue works. It's like an application talking to an application. That's why we have queue. That's why we use queue service. So now, in order for you to log all these things, to store them in a place, store all these logs of your queues, all these logs of your 2.5, your 5K, to store them in a place. That is where we now bring in Azure Queue Service. Now, if you're talking of Azure Files, Azure Files, we're talking of something like this. This is not how the cloud works. This is not how the cloud works. Sorry. Not this. Let's go to desktop. So this is not how the cloud works. The cloud doesn't have this. It doesn't have things structured in a file, open file. After opening the file, we'll see different file. Open this file again. After opening this, we see different file. No, that's how it works. Now, Azure Files is like having something like this illustration I gave you of how things are being stored in a cloud, whereby A and B, take for instance, we have person A and person B trying to share the same hard drive. Are we clear on that?
Yeah.
Like person A and person B, we're trying to share the same hard drive. So we are actually looking through the same directories, through the same files. We can actually check, okay, user CHIED, app data, local data, temp data. He can actually do the same thing on the system. So it's like a way of structurally arranging these things whereby A and B can see the same thing. just like you see it on your system, just like you see it on your operating system. That is how you store data. That is what we call Azure File Server. So I'm not here to define what Azure File Server. They won't ask you what is Azure File Server. They'll ask you, if I have a file, if I have A and B, and I want them to share the same file system, how do you think I can actually communicate? What kind of service will I use? Is it Azure Queues? Is it Azure? Is it blob storage? Is it files? Is it file storage? Is it queue storage? So you actually have to dictate what you actually use to deliver that service. That's what's called. The answer is actually file storage. So file storage is a way of sharing the same directory, sharing the same file service to different people. Now, when we talk of blob storage, remember I was giving the analogy of putting things inside the buckets and storing them. Are we good? Are we clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're putting these things into a bucket, and we're actually arranging them into a container. And inside those containers, we are if anybody needs an image, he gets an image quickly. If anybody needs a log, he gets a log quickly. We're not putting log and putting oranges together. It's a bucket, fine. But inside the bucket, there's a way we arrange these things inside a bucket. So we are basically arranging these things, structuring them in a way whereby we can deliver these services easily, quickly, efficiently, because there's no point to which you store something whereby I cannot query that thing or get that thing easily as quickly as possible. So I'm telling you the cost to which we have to arrange these things and put them in an organized manner. Now, blob storage is an object storage system. Remember I told you we had a bucket, and inside that bucket, we had different kind of things inside the bucket. We had oranges, we had pencils. So oranges and pencils are objects. Now the bucket is a container. So now that container is actually where we store different kind of things inside. It's an object. You can store different kind of things. I would show you an example of how I'm uploading something into a blob storage. I will show you how to actually include a file server into it. I'll be clear on all those things, and I'll show you guys what those things are. I'm more of a practical guy, whereby we don't talk long talks. We show the things straight up. So this was an Azure. Let me create an Azure storage account. This was something I was doing yesterday for preparation like this. So we're creating. Let me go straight. Let me start from the base page. We click on Azure storage. Are we good? If we can't see Azure storage on our home storage, so probably we don't have this listed out, because this will always bring out the services you use last. Like I used Quick Center a long time ago. I used subscription a long time. So this actually brings you the most recent service you use. So I go here and I check for store. The next thing we're seeing is storage account, right? I click on storage account. What are we seeing here? Create a storage account.
Yeah.
Loads. Now, you know what subscriptions are? Can someone tell me what the subscription is?
I know it,
Okay.
but I don't know how to put the English.
Yes, see, I can't just come and preach these things. No, usually we're meant to start from Azure 900 before we jump into 104. It is very, very necessary. Assuming we're starting from 900, we know what we are talking about here, because storage, the concept of storage, the concept of credit, the concept of different concepts, we have to break these things down, because on top of those concepts, those basic concepts, is where Azure 104 now comes in. Azure 104 is very, very critical in Microsoft. You can use Azure 104 to get your cloud architect exam. If you pass use it as a prerequisite to pass your cloud architect exam. You use it as a prerequisite to pass your Azure DevOps exam. It's like the bed, the main sorry, like the main powerhouse. So a subscription is
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, you said we can use Azure 900 to pass the architect exam, and then the
no Azure 104. Azure 104. Yes, it's a recent change. Yeah.
Okay, so but underlying for 104 is 900, right?
Yeah.
They won't tell you it's a prerequisite, because so probably you are used to another cloud platform like AWS or GCP. They know you already understand the concept of subscription. You understand the concept of the basic concepts already. So when you are telling you 104, they know that, okay, on top this basic knowledge, we are building this or building that. We're building you to be an architect. We're building you to be a DevOps engineer. So now, if we're talking about, sorry, what were you talking about again? Azure 900. Azure 900 is not a prerequisite. They just tell you, okay, go to 104. Not a prerequisite. Not a prerequisite, but it is necessary. Anybody that wants to tell you or teach you anything about cloud, you must first start with 900. 900 is where you explain the concept of subscription. 900 is where you explain the concept of virtualization, explain the concept of different services to which they produce. Microsoft produces a lot of services. They produce a lot of services. So the software as a service, this platform as a service, there are different kinds of services. Now, if you talk of platform as a service, we're talking of Azure Kubernetes service. That's a little bit advanced. Let's take, for instance, platform as a service. Have you heard of Azure Functions? Now, Azure Functions is like, we need to have the basic knowledge of how a web service works. Usually, if I want to write olden days now, if I want to write my codes, I'll have to put them in a server. Then I have to buy my server. My server is like, let's take for instance, a Tokumbo server is like 2 million naira. I have to buy my server. I have to buy my hard drive. And inside my server, I have to store my operating system. I have to reroute my networking infrastructure. Now, I have a lot of headache. Now, that does not end though. I have to now pay for power. How do I handle power? When they take light, we're in Nigeria, what if they take light? How will I handle these things? So now there are different things you have to cater for. Now, where Azure comes in is that they remove that abstraction of having to pay for power, having to pay for your network, having to pay for this, having to pay for that, having to pay for that. So they just give you these services and you pay as you go, just like your recharge card. Are we clear? Now, these things are now Azure subscription comes in whereby we are talking of a postpaid. How many of us pay for? Okay, how many of us work in companies whereby they pay for our call bills? Pay for it for a month, and you can make unlimited number of calls. So, but in this sense, we are okay. Look, take for instance, you have a data, and you pay for data in monthly subscription. The monthly subscription is like you pay 1,000. Okay, you pay like 15K for maybe 70 gig, and inside that 70 gig is meant to last for 1 month. So the 70 gig is like what you use in software in the net. It's what you use in exchanging data. Is what you use in communicating. What you use that 70 gig within that month. Within that, it's like your subscription. Now we understand the level of subscription. We understand what subscription is. Data is not money. Do you understand? You're browsing the internet. Like if you're actually done this thing for an illiterate just says, okay, I have money. Why is it that I don't have internet connection? You don't have internet connection because you don't have data. So you have money, you don't have a subscription. Your money is not subscription. The subscription is what you call data. Your subscription is 70 gig. Your subscription is 900, 1,000 Azure credits. You understand? Azure credits is actually taken up as data, as the word data, as your 70 gig. Now, you're not talking of your 70 gig, you're talking of your 100 Azure credits. You understand the whole concept of subscription. Now, different subscription, different package. Now, if I'm explaining 70 gig for MTN, I'm explaining it that 70 gig is 15K. 70 gig is 15K. But if you're talking about subscription, there are different subscription tiers on Azure. You can check that up. You can look that up later on. Are you clear? Are you clear on what the concept of subscription?
Yeah.
Are we clear on the concept of subscription? Because I'm meant to explain these things. I will not even talk physically on what, but I'm trying to like pick up these pieces. So whereby if I'm explaining these things now, we now know what we are talking about. Do you understand the concept of subscription? This is basic. This is very, very basic. But I cannot start talking about basic things. I cannot start talking about advanced things without teaching the basic things first.
We understand the subscription. That you
Yes, yes, we now understand the concept of a subscription.
Can we hear me?
The
Yeah.
guys is confusing, kind of.
Okay. So I was not meant to start with this 104, but it's what we have for today. So I'll try as much as possible to explain this concept, but I won't. So I was on my terminal, my Azure.
Sorry, this is the entire course outline, right? So if we are preparing for the exam, these are the things we need to.
Yes. We need to study. We need to talk about Active Directory, talk about storage, talk about virtual networking, talk about AKS. They actually talk about AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. We talk about monitoring too. So those things are.
And just to add, right? So there's this portal that we're informed of, Microsoft Learn, and that we can see some videos there. I even saw videos of the prerequisites there as well. So are those videos, are they sufficient to, if you want to study for the exam? Because beyond the classes here, we also need to go and do some personal self-study.
Okay.
So would those videos suffice, or
They are not, they are videos, but you have to pay for them. You have to pay for the videos, but the self-paced learning platform is like you just read them up. They're just different like they're like blogs. You just read them up and do the hands-on. If you have an Azure subscription, you do the hands-on. You just do different services. So you do different tasks on it. It's actually clear and open. But if you're going to do that, please start with Azure 900 first. For those who don't have basic knowledge. And after Azure 900, you can now move into Azure 104. So you don't get to start cramming things, or concepts become so huge and bulky in your head. You're trying to like package everything up, because these things are like, they are building blocks. They are building on top a layer. Then the next layer they are building on top is another layer. So that's just it. Azure 104 is an associate exam. Azure 900 is a fundamental exam. Then DevOps or Azure Solution Architect is a professional exam. All these things they require you to have probably a minimum. For Azure 900 it's a 0. From a 0 to, you can write a 900. But Azure 104, you must have about 6 more at least 6 months hands-on experience on Azure, on Microsoft Azure. So that's the prerequisite. Then Azure security, they require you to have like about 2 years experience. Then that's your associate. When professional, you need to have about 5 years experience. But if you yeah, you were saying something.
So someone who doesn't have that's the 6 months hands-on experience, would they stop that person from writing the exam? Or is it just a recommendation?
It's a recommendation. You know, it's a recommendation. The recommendation. But that's just it. They're just giving you an advice on what to do. That's just
okay. All right.
So sorry, one more thing. So just to be clear on this again, and that's one. So you would prefer someone like me that is just coming into cloud computing to start with Azure 900 first?
Yes. I would suggest you go through Azure 900 and understand the concept. Then I will always encourage you to ask questions, no matter how stupid they are on the group chat, so that anyone that understands the concept can easily explain these things, because that's the best way to learn and actually come at par with your mates. That's the best way.
All right, thank you. And
so are we good? Are we clear? We're still creating an account, storage account. So someone took you on Active Directory. Did the person break things down for you to know what Active Directory was all about? Or do I need to actually, because it's a building block, like I said. So if you don't understand Active Directory, when you read the part whereby Active Directory has to play in Azure storage account, I have to now go and start explaining Azure storage account. So let me know, what can someone, like, I need someone to give me a brief understanding on what Azure Active Directory is all about. Do you know what Azure Active Directory is all about? If it's a no, let me hear you know, please.
So personally, I know about Active
I
Directory.
know from you.
But then it was not taken. It has not been taken within the context of Azure.
I didn't get you clearly. Sorry.
I said that for me, I know what Active Directory is. But the last class we did not take Active Directory within the context of Azure.
Okay. So we know what Office 365 is, and how we use that to organize, how we use that as an organizational means to structure or organize our employees or staffs or people who have access to different services and different platforms. Like take for instance, you came to a company and your company's email, you're hosting a company's email on the company is using Azure services. So definitely you're gonna integrate it to Azure 365 with their services, their domain, whatever it is. Okay, so
sorry, is that the question?
yes, no,
Yes,
no, it's not a question. It's not a question. It's not a question. You come into a company. Let's take an instance. You come into a company. I'm trying to explain the concept of Active Directory so that I understand that we have a common source of truth. It's not that I would assume, so we have a common source of truth. So let me go over Active Directory, like trying to make you understand the concept. So Active Directory is like you have a company and A, B, Zeno, all of us came into a company and we are new employers. And our employees take our details and create an account for us. And we are in a company, just like a Slack team, just like a Slack group, a Slack channel. So everybody is into that, everybody's logged into that account, or is able to share things, able to share files, able to connect to each other, able to talk to each other on team. We could actually go to our mails, and if you're sending mails to somebody Okay, now take for instance, you're meant to send a mail to everybody in the company. How do we do that? You just push a mail to everybody. You just generalize these things, like you send it using the Office 365. I'm just giving an instance to someone that doesn't have any knowledge of what Office 365 is. So that kind of thing is what you do on Office 365. Now, all we know is that Active Directory takes the details of that person and is able to push them into the accounts, into the company's account, whereby we have a directory, like a list of every person inside that organization. Now, different people, we have probably we have the network administrator, we have the developers, we have the cloud guys, we have the customer support. So different people come into this place, and we have to actually organize them. We have to actually position them. We have to actually give them access towards different things. Now, you're not expecting a clerk or a gateman to have access to your secrets, your data, your probably the company's payroll. You're not expecting a gateman to have access to the company's payroll. So in a situation like that, you have to give privileges. You have to know how to structure these things, structure this payroll. Now, we're talking of privileges, we're talking of role-based access control system, role. So now, if the fact is clear that all of us are in a company, now we have to now give privileges. Who can do this? Who can do that? You get everything. There's something that the boss can do that a new employer cannot do. It's something that a new DevOps engineer can do that it's something a senior DevOps engineer can do that a junior DevOps engineer cannot do. A junior DevOps engineer can just come and see a file. He can read the file, but he cannot delete the file. He cannot make changes to the file. He cannot even read the file itself. So that you just have to. It's just a way of giving access or trying to organize things, give people what they need. You don't give you don't make your company very, very, very porous. You don't just say, okay, oh, he's a tech guy, I allow him have access to everything. And you don't know the extent to which he can do things, which he can actually perform tasks and operations. So basically, it's just a way of organizing things. Now, Active Directory, we have administrative roles. This is basically what we do. We are administrators, Microsoft Azure 104, Microsoft Certified Administrator. Yes. So we are actually administrators. So we should know or have an in-depth knowledge on how to assign roles, how to assign roles to different members of the organization, to give privileges. You're not expecting the marketing team to have access to the infrastructure builds or the infrastructure build files. So just a way of partitioning everybody. You don't know, in that way, you actually, if you actually have an attack, you know where your attack is coming from, you know where your problems are coming from. So that is the whole concept of Active Directory. Active Directory gives you the privileges, least privileges preferably, to access things. That is what Active Directory is all about. Then we're talking about, we've cleared the whole concept of Active Directory, we've cleared the whole concept of storage. Remember, of subscription. Remember, I told you subscription is data, data to which you use to perform different actions on Azure. It's called credits actually on Azure. So it's just you knowing how to perform different actions. Now, I guess we have roughly the knowledge to which we use to move on in storage account. That was what I was trying to build from the beginning. So this is a subscription. We have different types of subscription. You can read that up. So should I Google it out? Let me just, no, that will waste time. So we'll read it out. We'll read what different types of subscriptions are. I'm using virtual studio subscription. That's the subscription I'm actually on. Then resource group. We all know what resource group are. Do we know? Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, can hear you.
Okay. So resource group is like a way of grouping different resources. Now, different resources are your storage account is meant to be in a resource group. Your virtual machine is meant to be in a resource group. Your Azure Kubernetes service is meant to be in a resource group. Your DB, your whatever DB service you're actually leveraging on Azure is meant to be in your resource group. If we should ignore my follow.
So if I can get you clearly, whatever
Okay.
we are working on generally should be in a resource group.
Yeah.
Just like when you're creating a website, you create a folder, a particular folder where everything enters. So like a resource group now, you're talking about your Kubernetes, data storage,
Yes.
and the virtual machine, everything being resource. So when it's picking, it knows that it's this particular place it's picking it from.
Yes. Now, resource group could actually be sectioned in a way. Okay, you can actually. This is actually this is actually 900. Azure 900. You can actually organize your. You can actually organize things in the management section, whereby we have different sections. We have different marketing team. We have sales team. So different sections, you can actually section them. Management teams now have different subscriptions. Now they don't mix up. They don't mix up together. Do you understand? Now, if we go down, we are. It's like I need to show you that tree. I need to show that tree. That organizational tree. Okay. For Azure, right? Let's see if it comes out as. Okay, so something like, yes, this is what I'm looking for at the moment. Can we see my screen? Can we see my screen?
We can still see just the course outline.
Okay. Let me share my full screen. So this is what we're talking of. If you actually want the link, probably I might send it to you. So this is where we organize this. Now we have the human resource, we have the IT, we have the marketing. Now, this is the root management group. This is where your CEO stays. And then we have different heads of departments. Now, between these different heads of departments, we have different subscriptions. So whereby we find out, we use this to track which departments in an organization consumes the most resource. If the sales teams are consuming enough resource and they're not returning that revenue back to the company, it's something you need to query, something you need to check, like why are these guys eating up a lot of resources and they are not returning back that investment. So it's a way of organizing things. Then after this, you can now group things down to the management level. Now, remember I told you this is your root management. Can we see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is a root management level. This is the management group. This root management is your CEO. Now, this root management level is where you organize different department heads. Then different department heads, you can actually create other smaller departments under that department with different subscriptions. But no, we did not do that. It's not actually explicitly defined in this diagram. Now, what we did is that we created a management group, a department, a small department. Under that department, we created a subscription. So we can be able to monitor what this department is using. You get? So now, under this department now, under this subscription now, it's we now have different resources, different resource group. Now, this is the same thing I explained here. Under, sorry, excuse me. Can I call you back? Can I call you back? All right. So these are different, where was I? Okay, so these are different subscription. Let me show you my subscription. This is the Virtual Studio subscription at the moment right now. So this is the only subscription I have at the moment here. It's active. It's the only subscription I have here. So let's go back home. Now, anything I consume here, it's if anything I'm like, it's a way of allocating. Like now, I have a 50 gig SIM card, and under that 50 gig SIM card, I assign 20 MB to Chrome browser only. I assign 30 MB to WhatsApp. Now, I'm allocating these things. However Chrome wants to use it, Chrome should not exceed 20 MB. It's a way of actually constraining these people to not exceed their boundary or take more than this or take more than that. So if you can actually do things that way, or you actually open up your free hands and let them consume whatever they want to consume. But in that way, it's just a slider. You have to either you declare it, or you just give a free hand. Are we clear on that, or what subscription is all about and how we organize things? Now, under this subscription, now we have another layer, that is the resource group. Resource group. This is how to create a resource group here. Okay, so now this is to create a resource. Sorry, let me create a resource group. This is create a resource group. Now I have different resource group. We have a cloud guru, we have testing, we have this. Now, what's inside my Ansible testing? What did I create there? I created different things inside. I created a storage account. You see this is a storage account. I created this. This is a virtual network. This is a VNet. Like we'll talk about that maybe later in the course. Now this is my CentOS VM. This is my static IP. Now, what Azure did is that they created static IP. Don't worry. Let me know if you're wrong. Okay, now so this is my network security group. This is my network interface. So this is my disk. So there are different services under. It's like a way of grouping things all together. So that's what the network security group is all about. Sorry, that's what the resource group is all about. Now let's talk about storage accounts and move on and creating a storage account. Now, we've explained the concept of Virtual Studio. We've explained the concept of resource group. I believe everybody's carried along. Then we were naming this our storage account. What should we name it as? Tutorial. No, okay. Tutorial 98. Tutorial 98. Okay. 98 already taken. No, not taken. Now, in this name should be generally, spanning across all storage accounts worldwide. It should be distinct. It should be distinct. You cannot have two Tutorial 98 in the world. So you must find a naming convention to which you use to name all these your storage accounts. If your company is MATLAB, let's take for instance MATLAB, your company should have MATLAB-0102 for their second second storage. Maybe the next storage account is 0103. So it's just a naming convention, a pattern to which you have to follow in naming all these things. Now I deploy it in this region, in US East region, US East 2, take for instance. And now performance. There are different performance. There's premium, there's standard, but I will just go with standard. Before, are you with me? Before, there are different ways. Now, remember I talked about V1 and V2. V1 is a general purpose account. V2 is another general purpose account. But the advantage of V2 over V1 is the fact that V1 does not agree for V1 doesn't agree for this word again. I actually feel like passing all these things from my head. So yeah, we'll talk about V2 later on, Sha. So this is Joe. Remember we talked about Joe redundant, Joe redundant, zone redundant, local redundant, and the rest. So this is basically we're creating a virtual environment. Maybe later on in the slide we'll talk about what V2 is. Required information. What do we require the information previously?
Yeah, the name.
Oh, okay. Let's give it 778. It must be unique. Not unique, you have issues. So we're validating, checking if everything, all conditions are being met. Oh. Before we validate, I would like to explain these things to you. Now, when we talk of security, understand what security enable infrastructure encryption. Basically, we have an encryption already to encrypt all this data that is being transferred. But in order for it to have a second layer of encryption, that is when we talk of enabled encryption. We have to enable encryption here. So this is like a second layer of encryption. Now, enable public access. We'll discuss more of what this is all about later on. But public access is like you have a blob storage. Not everybody should have access to that blob of storage. It's not meant to be accessible to the public. We could define these things on the storage account level, or on the container level, or on the data, this blob itself, the actual data we're actually storing inside the container. We can actually define whether they can actually be accessed. Now, there are different ways to access these things. There are different ways to declare these things, not declare these policies that you want. Azure Files, yeah. So that'll be all for here. So let's just create, so move on. Running final validation. Okay, is it created? Okay, so we created now. Okay. So it's still deploying in progress. Now, I wish I had more time to explain these things. This talk more on block storage. Because I have to break down everything to various minimum. Okay, so this is my tutorial 778. Now we have containers. Inside these containers is where we keep our blob storage, our blobs. We have different types of blobs. Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we
So we have different type of blob. We have block blobs. We have which block blobs are suited for images and suited for streaming. Then append blob is suitable for log files. You know what logs are now? Log files are like servers. You know, when you're running a server, and those things that pop up, all those things that shows different processes or give you feedback of your codes of how things are. You know, we all have an idea of what blob is, log files are. So then page blob is for virtual machine disks. You can actually store your virtual machine disks or images of your virtual machine disks on blob storage. Now, it's a way of storing all these things. Like you just take the object and throw it there and say, oh, Azure, take it, keep it for me. If it's a log file, keep it for me in append blob. If it's images, keep it for me in block blob. If it's virtual machine disk, okay, we're just taking all those files, but you have to define these things because it doesn't make sense keeping a virtual machine disk in a block blob. Block blob is for images and videos. Then we're creating a container. A container is where we're creating a container is where we actually keep. Let's call this container Dozman. So talking of access levels, we'll talk about that later on. Encryption. Do we need any encryption? No. Okay. So we actually created a container. This container is what we're using categorically, actually using sectioning these things, keeping them, structuring them. Now inside here, we defined what we want to upload. Let's see. Okay, so now to upload, we have to define what I can upload here. It's open my Windows dialog and I choose any file I want. Let's upload this. Let's upload this. So I upload this. Upload. Yeah, I'm uploading this. Then this is this is block. Remember I told you about block, page, and append. Page is for, what did I say page is for? Please let me know if you're actually following. Page is for virtual machines. Block is for images.
Images.
Yeah, and append is for what? Append is for log files. Log files, where we keep log files. So what are we keeping here now? We're keeping a block blob. So this is where you specify the size of the block and the access tier. Now, access tier, let me explain this. Now, Azure doesn't like to, if you're keeping something with me, don't come and keep it and come and ask me for it in the next 5 minutes. It's just like you are disturbing me if you ask me in the next 5 minutes. Now, if you're keeping something with me, I would like you to keep it for a long time. I don't like you to keep it with me. There are different. Now, if you have a hot tier, there are different kind of access tier here. If you have a hot tier, you need it to be, that means you're defining that this thing I want to create, this blob I want to create is actually going to be created often. I will actually be asking for my data quick all the time. Now, if we're making it cool, that means I would not need to ask for it. I'll ask for it once in a long time. Now, if we're archiving it, that means just be there. Just leave it there. Practically, I've not forgotten about it, but I don't want to delete it. Now, but we'll talk about, don't worry, let's just talk about this for now and create this blob. So we're creating this. We're uploading it. We're uploading 6 MB. So it's actually going to store it here. But when it's okay, so complete, refresh. Yeah, here we go. So this is everything we have. Now, if I click on this, like that. Now, if you check out, this is a hot tier, meaning that this is gonna be, I'm gonna be needing this every time, all the time, most of the time. Now, if you talk about blob type, we're talking about images and the rest, which is PNG are all images. So you understand what we're talking about here. So if we're talking about now, who needs access to shared access token? Shared access token is like a way of saying that only Zeno has access to my files. I have to explicitly define all these things here. Shared policy, this access policy, you have to see why I don't like UI. Access token, are you with me? Access token is like giving someone an access to something for a particular period of time. Now, I need someone's name here, please. So who is volunteer for me to call their names? Okay, I need a Chooks, yeah. I need Chooks to have access to this files for a particular period of time. I specify the dates, I specify the time, I specify everything down to the barest minimum. Now, if I want Chooks to have access to these files only from a specific IP address, I have to detect it. Now, what this means is that only when Chooks is on his official PC that he has access to my blob storage files, that he has access to these files that are stored inside this container. Only now, if I create this access token, is what I will share. This is what I can share to Chooks for him to do whatever he wants to do on this system. So this is what shared access token is all about. Then I am is where we talk about role-based access. Remember, I talked about Active Directory. After having everybody in the company, you now have to give roles. You're not expecting someone just in your company, someone that is an intern in your company to just have access to production files and the rest. So it's where you actually have to specify your access control. You fine-grain your access to different things. Something I missed again here. Something I missed, I forgot to tell you. I think that was while creating a, let's just call this, create it. Okay, yeah, I understand here. So while uploading this, let's just take this image and upload it. Now, if you check out in this authentication type, I said Active Direct users. You can use an account key. An account key is different from Active Directory users. Active Directory users means access. That's giving someone this privilege access, giving someone the access to this particular account. Or either I give that person that thing, or I give the person the key to my account. My account is like the door. Like once he enters, it's like he has every right to do whatever. If he wants to delete, he can delete. If he wants to write, he can write. If he wants to declare anything, he can do. So whatever he wants to do inside the account, he can do. He has access to it. So that's what it's all about. But this is like the rough overview of everything. Now, It's something I will just explain by myself. We actually don't have to store every file. There's something they called versioning, and I'm clear, it's called versioning and versioning, change feed, and cross subscription. Now, if I have a storage account, I can transfer my data from my storage account to another person's storage account, and Azure can permit that with the right access. Now, that cannot be possible if you're not using a V2 account. Remember, I told you there's a difference between V1 and V2. V2 has different, V2 is like a better version. That's just how I put it. V2 has different functionality. So you have access to transfer your data from one account to the other account. That's that's the advantage of V2 over V1. Talk of versioning. Now, if you place something in a blob storage and someone makes changes to it, just like your GitHub, your Git and your GitHub, when someone makes changes to it and those changes, you're not comfortable with what he made, you actually have to roll back or go back to the previous version to which it was before. So that's what versioning is. But change feed must be enabled in order for you to move from one account to the other account. Change feed must be enabled. Did I show you that on my terminal? I think I just need to show you that on my terminal. So usually, so that's just real. No. I need to get you familiar with the configuration. Okay, what's going on here? Remember, this was a V2 purpose account. I can actually transfer my files from this file to the other file, but probably in the next class, if possible, I would show you all these things or have a demo, or actually give you a link to where I'll upload all these videos or hands-on things to just get your hand busy. But you must know what you're doing before you get your hands busy. That's how I work. I must know what I'm doing. I cannot just decide to do something without having a reason not to do it. So, if you want to actually put things into your storage accounts, how to store them, how to just keep them there, move them from one account to the other account, maybe probably because you want to move things from marketing department to marketing storage account to sales storage account, how to move them, how to make things portable. You have to declare all these things here. Then remember I told you about storage, the storage account. Okay. Okay, so this is upper limit SAS access. It helps to ingrain your access towards that account. You know, I told you there was a storage account access. After the storage account access, there's a container access. After the container access, there's a data access. So we're all fine ingraining things at different levels. I can allow everybody to look at my storage account. But when it comes to something private, maybe I just allow one of my friends. I have to define, okay, just my friend can have access to the account. And if I go again, I want to give access to another, I have to now define it. So this is just like the rough overview of what everything is all about and blob storage. Then file service. Let's go to file service as quickly as possible. I know time. I was not really looking at time. I was not watching time. So now we're talking about Azure Files, file share. This is me opening a new file share here. If I remember, I told you file share is like the operating system, like the way our operating system is sharing our file explorer. Like everybody's seeing the same file explorer in their own computers. It's a way of opening different disks or different, like I have an external drive, and that external drive, I plug it to my system. As I plug it to that my system, another person in B, another system can see those files in that my system, like having a shared access towards a particular hard drive. It's like a hard drive having two mouths, something like that, if you understand the concept. So this is me just creating a random file share. And inside my file share, my file share. This is it. I'm trying to connect. There's nothing inside my file share now. I'm trying to connect it to my. Let's take for instance, I want to connect it to my Linux. You just have to copy these codes here and push them in my Linux. If I want to copy it to my Windows, I have to define it just like I defined here. I need to share my whole screen so you can see what I'm saying. So remember here, it's Windows Drive C, right? This is Windows Drive C. So I am naming my Windows Drive C. If I'm naming this, I have to give it a letter here. Remember, it's not possible to give it letter C. You just have, I'm not even sure on your system. So you just have to give it another letter, maybe letter G. Storage account key. Yes, that's what I use in accessing this file or folder. I won't create it. So when I copy this and open my command line, first of all, you must link this your command line to the Azure CLI. Talk about that later. Okay. So I'm actually having issues right now. My command line is not synced with my command line, my CMD, my command line is not synced with my Azure account. So that's why we're having issues here. So just pasting them and doing things.
So is there a way to sync your command line and your Azure?
Yes, there are basic setups towards doing those things. You know, this is just like a way of approving that this is this person, or this is me, or and this is my system, or and my credentials are stored on my systems that I can't see. If we're all familiar with SSH key, it's like SSH and keys and SSH keygen. So this is basically what it is. So it's where we just have to okay, let me just do this for my Linux VM. I think I've done this for my Linux VM before. How to mount this to my VM. How to mount this in my VM here. That's what I'm trying to do. Like that file server, like plugging your external hard drive towards your system. So that's basically what I'm doing here. Let's check it out. My file. Are we? Okay. File system. What did I name it? Let me see. Let's see, but something is wrong somewhere. I don't know. It's as simple as that. As simple as I just showed you. Probably I need to restart my VM or something. But it's meant to appear here on this file system as another file, another external, just like this is showing as a file system. That's this my other this mount, this file share is going to also appear like that. So that's basically what this is all about. So I guess we understand the concept of file share. So if we're looking at, we still have to do more research and more reading. So wrap our head around this. I guess this brings us to the end of the session. Then I would really like to take you guys basically on things or basic concepts and foundation. So you don't have to 1 hour, 2 hours just explaining a simple concept of storage. I guess this is the end of our session. Is there any question anyone else asks? Is there any question anyone else asks?
For me, no, I'm okay. I'm good.
That brings us to the end.
Oh, I'll need to rewatch because network. I need to rewatch questions.
Okay, I guess network is actually giving issues. If you have any questions, just put them. I think there should be a chat here. There it is. Okay. So if you just post on the chat and I'll see it.
Okay, thank you very much. There are questions because the network has been very bad. So by the time we rewatch it, I guess we'll understand better.
Let's just take this thing bit by bit. You can't rush things, so you just have to take things small by small and understand these little concepts because they might actually affect us later on as we move on into the DevOps world or the cloud world. We're all learning, everybody's learning. So I guess this brings us to the end of the session. I'll be leaving right now because it's something I need to attend to at the moment.
All right, thank you very much for the class.
All right. All right.
Okay, the meeting has come to an end. Can we end the class?